"There's no room for old grudges in this family," my dad always said, while simultaneously holding every single one of his own for decades without ever acknowledging that he had even one of them. My father's name is Bernard, and he is the most consistent man I've ever known. Consistently contradictory, consistently blind to it, consistently certain that the rules he built for everyone else in the house were architectural features rather than the thing they actually were, which was a wall he built tall enough to live behind comfortably while calling the view from up there wisdom. I'm Danny, 27 years old, the second of 3 sons, the quiet one, which in my family meant the one who watched everything and said very little and spent approximately the first 22 years of his life believing that something was wrong with his own perception because it kept producing conclusions that nobody around him would confirm. There's no room for old grudges in this family. Bernard said this at the dinner table. He said it after arguments. He said it when one of us brothers stayed angry at another past the window of time he deemed reasonable. He delivered it with the particular authority of a man who believed that speaking a principle aloud was the same thing as living it, that the sentence itself was the evidence. What Bernard did not say ever in my entire childhood and into my adulthood was a single word to his brother Raymond. Raymond lived 40 minutes away, had lived 40 minutes away my entire life. I met him 4 times before I was 18, twice at funerals, once at a wedding, once at a holiday gathering in the early 90s that ended with my father going very quiet in the car on the way home, and my mother staring out the passenger window with the specific expression she reserved for situations she had decided not to touch. I asked my mother once, when I was around 12, why we never saw Uncle Raymond. She said they had their differences. I asked what the differences were. She said it was complicated. I asked my father the same question approximately 1 year later, having gathered enough courage to do so. He looked at me across the kitchen, folded his newspaper. This was a man who still read a physical newspaper daily and said simply that Raymond knew what he had done. That was the entire explanation. Raymond knew what he had done. Case closed. Newspaper reopened. I grew up, left home, built some distance between myself and Bernard's atmosphere, not out of anger, but out of necessity. The way plants grow toward light, not because they resent the shade, but because they simply need something different to survive. From that distance, I started to see the shapes of things more clearly. I saw that my father had not spoken to his own brother in over 30 years, over something that, when I finally got the story from my Aunt Cecile at a family gathering when I was 23, turned out to be a land dispute from their father's estate, a boundary line, a few acres, the kind of thing that starts as a practical disagreement and becomes, over enough years of silence, a monument to pride so large that neither man could see over it anymore. I sat with that information for a long time. Then one Sunday I drove to my parents' house, sat down across from Bernard at that same kitchen table, and told him what I knew, calmly, without accusation, just the facts, laid out plainly between us like the cards they were. He was quiet for a very long time. Then he said, "That situation is different," and there it was. The whole architecture of a man in 4 words. Every rule he had ever handed his sons neatly suspended the moment it touched the one place he'd decided rules didn't apply. The private kingdom of his own grievances kept carefully, tended quietly, never once examined in the same light he used to examine everyone else's. I didn't argue. I had stopped arguing with Bernard about Bernard years earlier. I just said, "I know you believe that, Dad." I drove home, called my own brother with whom I had let something small and stupid sit unaddressed for 3 months. We talked for 2 hours. Some lessons arrived through admiration, some arrived through inheritance, and some arrived because you watched someone you loved prove, for 30 years straight, exactly who you never wanted to become.